Tanzania President died today and there isn't an official reason. The President of the United Republic John Magfuli, 61 of Tanzania, passed away on March 17. The official reason for his death is chronic atrial fibrillation. The unofficial reason for many is COVID-19. African Tourism Board Chairman Cuthbert Nube issues statement. The President of Tanzania, His Excellency John Magufuli, died today March 17 in a Dar es Salaam hospital. The official reason for his death was released by Vice President Hassan: chronic atrial fibrillation, a condition. The unofficial reason is COVID-19. The President was not seen in public since February 24. He made headlines in denying COVID-19, made it illegal for doctors to use a COVID-related explanation for a death certificate, and reopened the travel and tourism industry in Tanzania without big restrictions. The President was a swift denier of COVID, saying vaccines are not good. Prayers are better. U2.B. Late President John Magufuli also said in January that Tanzania did not need a coronavirus lockdown because God would protect his people, and homespun precautions such as steam inhalation were better than dangerous foreign vaccines. COVID-19 numbers were not reported to WHO and the country was declared by the late president as not having a coronavirus issue. For many weeks the rumor on social media is that the president was sick with COVID-19 and was fighting for his life. He died today on March 17, followed by 14 days of national mourning where flags will fly at half-mast. Tanzania has more than 60 million people. Under Tanzania's constitution, Samia Hassan Suluhu, 61, will become the East African nation's president. She will be the first female president, and she is from Zanzibar, a semi-autonomous province where travel and tourism is playing a major role for the economy. Hassan will finish the remainder of the presidential term until next elections are held in 2025. Cuthbert Nube, chairman of the African Tourism Board, said in a statement by the organization. Cuthbert Nube, chairman African Tourism Board. It is with deepest sympathy to learn of the passing away of the President of Tanzania. He was one of the champions in accelerating the AU agenda on Africa's independence and self-actualization from colonial rule. One of the bravest leaders who stood for what he believes in. His passing is a blow to continental economic progress, as we have noted Tanzania's economy growing by 4% while the continental economy's lost more than 20%. The African Tourism Board (ATB) has collaborated and is working with the Minister of Tourism in rebranding Africa as the tourist destination of choice to all citizens of our global communities. John Pombe Joseph Magufuli was a Tanzanian politician who served as the 5th President of Tanzania from 2015 until his death in 2021. He served as Minister of Works, Transport and Communications from 2000 to 2005 and 2010 to 2015 and was chairman of the Southern African Development Community from 2019 to 2020. He was born October 29, 1959 and survived by his wife Janet and his 2 children Jessica and Joseph.
Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from livestream.travel and eTurboNews in Honolulu, Hawaii. And as always, with me is Dr. Peter Tarlow in College Station, Texas. And as always, we're going to talk about the weather. No, I'm kidding. I can tell you, let me jump the gun. If you see my face a little bit light on the left side because we have bright sunlight coming in. It's a beautiful day here in Honolulu today. And I'm wondering how things are in College Station.
And actually, it started out pouring rain this morning until about 9 o'clock. And then the sun came out and we had a beautiful blue sky, a little bit of wind, but it was in 86 degrees and blue skies. And I could walk around with without shirt sleeves. And so I'm happy because I'm a summer type person and not a winter type person. So I'm glad to see that. I always call the spring the war between the summer and the winter, and the winter attacks and the summer eventually pushes the winter away and wins. And then of course in the fall, it's the other way around, and the winter wins and the summer loses. So right now the days are getting lighter. We're in daylight savings time, which is a real issue in tourism, by the way, because many people would really like to do like you do in Hawaii and not have this changing in the clock. It causes all sorts of business problems. It causes problems for children. They don't do as well when the sun doesn't go down earlier. Children are standing on the street corners trying to wait for buses, both in the United States and Europe and in many parts of the world. But from a tourism perspective, it just throws everything into a tizzy, especially if you're flying from one place to the other, because the time keeps changing, not only because of time zones, but because even if you're staying in the same spot, the time keeps changing. And as you know, many people are now asking to get rid of daylight savings time, both in the United States and in Europe, as a real negative. So that's something the tourism industry really could get behind and work to get a standardization of time.
Well, as you said, we don't have this issue here in Hawaii. The only issue we have that all of a sudden it's 6 hour time difference between here and New York. What makes it for people who work, at least, with clients in the mainland, we call it the US mainland, more challenging because by 11 in the morning, it's 5 in the afternoon on the East Coast and everything is closed.
Yeah, it's really hard. Also going the other way, north-south, that becomes an issue. I do a lot of work with people in Brazil, and in the height of our summer, there's 3 hours difference between Texas and, say, Sao Paulo, Brazil. But then when Brazil switches to summer and we switch to winter, it goes to 5 hours difference. And so I'm constantly trying to figure out, am I 3 hours difference, 4 hours difference, or 5 hours difference? And so because the Southern Hemisphere has summer, obviously, from December 21st until March 21st. And we have summer from June 21st until September 21st. It makes it a little bit difficult. You end up with 4 or 5 different time variations. And for travel, that is really hard, especially on business people who are traveling.
Well, I think what's even more confusing in the international time segment are those countries that are working on a half-hour difference, like India, for example. And Nepal is taking us to the next extreme. Not only has Nepal a unique flag like no one else has, in a different shape and format, they also have 15 minutes difference from India, or 15 minutes from the main time. So that makes it real confusing.
Oh, wow. Well, speaking about, confusion and South America, one of the things that we do have to unfortunately mention is Brazil's, each day, and I know we've mentioned this before, but each day it's getting a little bit worse. The COVID epidemic in Brazil really now has the hospital system on the verge of total collapse. And it has infected not only the country, impacted the country, but also the tourism industry. People aren't coming. Now, first they had the problem of people not coming because of crime, but now they have the problem of people not coming because of COVID. And so that's a second real issue. And the country is suffering economically to begin with. And now for them to really almost totally lose their summer tourism industry is really costing them a lot of money and is going to make life incredibly hard.
Well, you can see Brazil opened up or never really took, maybe put it this way, they never really took COVID as a serious issue. And when you listen to the president in Brazil, and I remember some of his speeches, it's shameful. And now you see the results. Yes, they do have slums. There are, it's a lot of people in a city like Rio. This has additional issues. But altogether, Brazil didn't take COVID serious.
Yeah. On the other hand, Europe did take it very seriously, and they're going through a third wave. And I wonder what's provoking that new third wave, and it's created a lot of anger in Europe. And there's a big fight over AstraZeneca. And now I say the EU says they're going to boycott England because of the AstraZeneca issue. So, and countries are really mad at each other in Europe. I wonder why in a place where they take it so seriously, it didn't help. Or maybe it helped, but it could have been worse. I don't know.
Well, Europe, and I can maybe talk more about specifically about Germany, did take it very seriously. The government did, but people didn't take it very seriously. People were not disciplined. People were protesting any chance they get and say this is all, we don't need to follow the rules. We don't need to wear masks. And you can see this protest in every single city all the time. People start lawsuits immediately when the government came out with new regulations. People are filing lawsuits against it to stop it. Yes, the government was seriously, but I don't think they were able to enforce what they really should have enforced.
And do you think that was across all of Europe?
I think the situation, you see the protest in Holland, in Belgium. Belgium is one of the worst hit countries
Belgium
in Europe.
might be the worst hit country in Europe.
Yes.
And maybe in the world, or one of the
Yes.
worst hit in the world. I mean, and I wonder, why Belgium especially just kind of fell apart. Italy, of course, is locking down for Easter, and they're going to have a 3-day or 4-day curfew again. And I guess one of the questions is, do people, when governments, if they have too strict laws, does that force people to go the other direction? In other words, how do we create that happy medium so that the public wants to follow health guidelines versus feels that they're being thrown down their throat?
Well, I think it has to do also with the liberal mindset in Europe. If I compare it here, I don't want to bring up Hawaii every day, but if you compare it here in Hawaii, people are disciplined. It's a cultural issue, I think. If you go to areas, maybe you can probably know it better, but even Texas, a lot of protest against wearing masks. We don't have this issue. No one.
Well, actually, I think it's the other way around in Texas. The government protested, but interestingly enough, when they took away the requirement to wear a mask, almost everybody chose to wear a mask. I mean, I was in the supermarket again today, and you don't see anybody walking into the supermarket without a mask, even though it is not required. They say it's highly recommended. Please wear a mask and be polite. And everyone's wearing a mask. So maybe Texas found a new way of doing it, which is instead of the government forcing it down people's throat, it's getting the local population to want to do it. But our numbers are dropping considerably in Texas. And again, I think I was at a restaurant last night. Almost everybody came in wearing a mask. The waitress was wearing a mask. It was, very well separated. And that's without government regulation, instead of people are choosing to do it. So maybe we need to find some sort of way to do those two types of things.
Yeah, maybe it works in Texas. I don't know if it might work here too. It's reverse psychology, but I don't think it's going to work in Europe. When people don't have to wear a mask, people are not going to wear a mask.
Yeah,
and then it's dangerous.
Yeah, so of course Texans take great pride in their personal freedom, and it's not you're going to tell me to wear a mask. I'm going to choose to wear a mask. But now that I can choose to do it, I'll wear the mask. If you tell me to do it, I won't do it. But if you let me choose to do it, I will do it. So
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's it's it's a lot of people's personal freedom, of course, is very big. I think another issue we're going to start seeing is the whole issue of what I'm calling tourism inflation, and we're noticing in all sorts of areas because of the canceling in the United States of the Keystone Pipeline. Of course, gas prices have gone up considerably. In Texas, where gas is fairly inexpensive, it went from $1.90 a gallon to about $2.29 or $2.30 a gallon, which is much less, I know, than probably Hawaii. You're paying $4 a gallon, but you have to import your gas. But California is paying $4 a gallon, and they don't have to import their gas. But when gas prices go up, airline prices go up, food prices go up, restaurant prices go up, the cost of heating and air conditioning goes up. And so it's not just the cost of a gallon of gas, it's the cost of everything else that's dependent on it. And we're starting to see that impact many of the areas of tourism. Hotel prices are going up, airline prices are going up, restaurant prices are going up. And then if we couple that, we'll say in the United States, where the government plans to put massive new taxes on people, that could really have a tremendous negative effect on the way that the tourism industry operates. Because the bottom line is, if you have to buy food or you go on a trip, you're going to buy food or clothing or schooling for your children before you go on vacation. Because much of tourism, except for business tourism, is really income that people have, just expendable income. So it'll be really interesting to see how, if we have major inflation. Of course, this new in the United States is almost $2 trillion COVID relief plan, of which only 10% is for COVID relief and the rest is kind of a bailouts. This may cause, we now spent over $5 trillion just in the United States alone on COVID stuff. Europe is doing the same thing, and that means central banks are printing money. And when you print money, you can end up clearly like a Weimar Republic in Germany, where it takes everything you own just to buy a loaf of bread. So hopefully that won't happen, but certainly we have to be very careful about the precipice of falling off it of a major inflation. And if we do have tourism inflation, that's going to really hurt the tourism industry one more step, I think. I mean, again, nobody knows. You can't predict, but tourism inflation is something we really need to watch. What will changing hotel prices, restaurant prices, especially, and of course, airline and other forms of travel, transportation issues.
Yeah, no, inflation is definitely, I think, a concern, and inflation is not just an issue and a concern in the United States.
No.
The whole Western world is over. I mean, we're so much in debts everywhere.
Right.
And printing money doesn't create the value you need to cover these debts. So
right.
Yeah,
look at the Bitcoin went from what, something like $1,000 to $50,000 for one coin. And I don't know if you can sell it, if you can really get your $50,000, but at least it appears to be on the market. The other thing that we're seeing is because of people afraid of inflation, they tend to run to the stock market. And when people put money in the stocks, they do feel a little bit richer, and that's good. But on the other hand, it's a little harder to cash the stocks in, especially if they get rid of the capital gains tax or they up the capital gains tax. It means that you're going to make less money in your stocks. And so it's taking money out that might be for expendable income is now going to go into some other forms of income. The same thing, by the way, is happening in Europe. So it's not just the United States, it's any of the developed countries are going through this major problem. Certainly I understand why they were going to spend to get us out of the COVID crisis. You had to do that. But now we're going to have to pay the piper. And not only will we be paying for it, but our children and grandchildren will be paying for that for many, many generations to come.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well,
on that happy note, hopefully tomorrow will be a sunny day. And let's hope that we have really great news to share with everybody tomorrow with a big smile. And by the way, everybody needs to know that Jürgen Steinmetz, or Thomas, whichever way you know him, had his first COVID shot today. So he's at least partially on the way to herd immunity. So congratulations on getting your shot.
No, this was definitely a welcoming step, and I'm happy I got it. And it wasn't really bad in any way. They give you this paper with all these side effects that could happen within 15 minutes. And luckily nothing happened. So
yeah, if it doesn't happen in about 15 minutes, and you really should wait about 15, 30 minutes, you're good to go. You may feel a little bit of pain tomorrow in your arm, but so what? I'd rather have a little pain in my arm than be in the hospital grasping for breath with a ventilator. So better to have a little bit of a pain. And usually most people don't have much pain on the first shot. The second shot a little bit more, but so what? So you're in bed for a few hours. No big deal.
Exactly.
All right. I want to wish you a good night or a good afternoon to the people of Hawaii. Enjoy your happy day and go sit under a palm tree.
All right, Peter. You take care and go to the restaurant, but do wear your mask, please. Okay.
I always wear my mask. When I'm in the supermarket, I wear my mask. And like all Texans, I'm now choosing to wear it. So I'm very careful to wear it. And after I use a mask, I either throw it away or I wash it. So I make sure it's sanitized again.
Very good. All right.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
You take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.